There's no music. I was going to play music in the background, and I can't do it because I don't know my Spotify password. So what's the point of that? Anyway, hello. How are you? I hope that you're well and that you're being nice to people, and you've done 4 nice things today, like I have. All to myself, I might add. I went for a. Oh yes, look. I'll play you this. Look. Can I play this? Oh, I can't hear it. Why can't I hear it? Oh, it's muted. Look. See that? It's like my smashed phone. That's me, 6 o'clock this morning, out on my bike. I did 8.5 miles this morning. Got up at 6, was out by half 6. Still with sleep in my eyes, and I was cycling along like a nutter. That's why I look so skinny, because all the amazing exercise that I do. Anyway, this is one of those videos I do which is a bit rambly. I'm not going to edit it down because I don't have time. I don't have a team yet. I'll have a team when I've got like 200,000 subscribers, and then I'll get somebody to edit all this down so that you'd have to sit through me showing you videos. That video, by the way, exclusively for my Patreons over on Patreon. It's a little 8-minute film I made this morning, updating people with stuff. I don't really like to talk about businessy things, and I will do it increasingly less. All that kind of chatter will be sort of behind the scenes, behind the Patreon paywall. And when I say paywall, I'm talking like these are like people who are like, hey, do you want a cup of coffee, Craig? I'll buy you a coffee. That's literally what it costs to get beyond that paywall. So go crazy over there if you like. I love coffee. I have one right here. Says Ugly Mug, which I know everyone likes listening to people drinking. I don't actually. I hate it. Whenever I see a film that's got people, like pouring a drink, I'm like, oh, can't stand that noise, man. It's actually got a word, I think, for people who have a phobia about sounds, and I can't remember what it is, but I have that, especially about slurping, people drinking. I'm also not keen on sitting at a table when there's other people eating. Let me turn the attenuation down on this because you're missing the beginning of my words. There you go. Now you're getting the beginning of my words. Yeah, sitting down. Why would you want to sit down and watch other people put food into their mouths? I think it's foul. It's like horrible. I mean, that's as acceptable as having everybody later on in a circle, like having a room, like a dining room, but it's not. It's a bathroom with just a circle of toilets. And it's all sitting there afterwards like, that was good, wasn't it? All right. Anyway, this is going to be a chat about the BBC. And before I start getting into it, I full disclosure, I was trained at the BBC for 2 years. It was I was told was a very elite traineeship. 8,000 people applied to get on it, and they only take 8 people. Lots of 8s there, but if a coincidence, methinks. And I got on it, and that must mean because I was really good. Over a few drinks in the entertainment department late one night, I did manage to get out of my sort of team manager that the fact that I was from Scotland, I had a regional accent, helped. So they were still doing the old diversity thing way back in the day when I started, which was like 20 plus years ago. But I wanted to give I wanted to mention my time at the BBC. So I want to talk about a little bit about why the why is everyone talking about the BBC right now, and with a little bit of my experience when I was there. When I was there, we all got given one of these. Boom, the producer's guidelines. because we didn't have didn't have internet. This is a big, hefty book. I don't know if I can show you or not, but it's a big old book. Big old book with lots of guidance and notes about how we should behave and what we should do and what you can and can't do and the law. But the page 1 is there about impartiality, and this is like the number one thing that's drummed home. And I'm going to be get comfy, by the way. Go get a coffee, because this is going to be like a rambling video. And you know, I'd pause it if you haven't got time. Pause it and watch it later, because it's definitely go get a cup of coffee and have it on the background where you're fiddling around checking your emails and whatnot later on. But part 1 of the producer guideline, the year for this, because I know you want to know. This is 96, which is probably when I joined. It's even got the old logo. So the reason I'm reading this old one out, I have older ones. There's one from 1956. You know, I'm not just making this stuff up, right? I'm researching. But this is the one that we were given, and it says, due impartiality. Now, that word due is actually important if you want to Google it. There's a difference between impartiality and due impartiality. Anyway, due impartiality lies at the heart of the BBC. It is a core value, and no area of programming is exempt from it. It requires program makers to show open-mindedness, fairness, and a respect for the truth. Cut to this, if I can. Let me just try and move that into the middle there. Where is it? There we go. Move that right into the middle. Now, that is the cover of the New Statesman, which is not the BBC. But what is interesting is if you look, it says, New Statement failed. How the government's ineptitude created a lost generation, by Lewis Goodall. Now, Lewis Goodall, if I can find him here, is the editor for Newsnight at the BBC. So the editor for the Newsnight at the BBC is writing. Where is it? Here. Boom. Is writing a story for the New Statements, which is quite clearly calling the government inept. Now, it might be truthful that the government's inept, but it's also an opinion that the government are inept. So he's giving his opinion that the government are inept. Now, a lot of people would say the government are inept, but that doesn't matter. That's not the point, because of producer guidelines at the BBC. Now, the thing is, that's not true. Well, Ofcom say that due impartiality is something that they watch out for, but I don't necessarily think it's something that we need to always stick to. I think you can always tell that a news channel, it can be biased in one direction. One might be really conservative, and one might be sort of very sort of Labour, or in the US it's Democratic, and Republicans and Democrats in America, here it's Labour and Conservative. So, and I don't really have a problem with a broadcaster doing that, as long as there's balance and there's one to challenge the other one. There always will be. Here you've got, I would say there's a radio station called LBC, which I would class as being quite, especially now, gone quite left wing. Where on the other hand, you've got something called talk radio, which is I see to be quite right wing. I don't like wing terms, actually. I kind of like conservative and maybe a little bit socialisty, perhaps, is better. I don't know. I mean, it's all ugly to me. I'm a centrist. I'm in the middle, so I don't care if people criticize conservatives. I don't care if people criticize Labour. That's kind of where I'm at. And if it's a genuine criticism, then that's where I'll be. And I certainly don't believe in trying to be nasty and spiteful. I have been, by the way, but that's why I ditched having a pretend name on the internet and start using my real name, Craig Duncan, because I want to take responsibility for everything I say, and I'm not in the business of just insulting people because I disagree with them. Right. So anyway, the BBC has got a duty to be impartial, and it was back in '96 and the '90s and the 2000s. I was there for a while, and while I was there, we practiced this, But then something interesting happened. Round about the year 2000, 20 years ago, what happened was we started introducing digital channels, and we called them side channels. So if I was producing a series for the BBC, which I ended up doing, I did several, I would have to also supply the commissioner or the channel. I'm not quite sure who I was supplying it to, but I have to supply a bunch of information to go on the side channel. And that was originally like the little red dot in the corner of the screen. So what happened was you'd have like my show, which is like the show I did was about, I think it was half an hour long. Was that an hour? Half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. And we had little stories on there. And every time we had a story, we were doing a story about, I don't know, a new laptop. That I did a tech show with a presenter, Charlie Brooker, who went on to do Black Mirror. And we used to do like tech and reviews and game reviews and stuff. It was great. But if we had like a laptop review, for example, we would have to, on the side channel, have extra information the viewer could access. So they'd press the red button and they could find out more information about that laptop that they weren't being told in the show. That was the whole point. It was extra detail. It was a bit naff because it was just text-based, really. It wasn't really very good. And it was the early days of like digital technology, and these side channels just became whole new channels, essentially. So that's how things started out, and it was really, really good. But there was a lot of pressure on the BBC because there was exciting things happening over at Channel 4 and the new station that just came out called Channel 5. So competition was rising, and especially young people were being highly engaged by a much more funky, edgy breed of television that was coming along. A lot of production houses started forming and supplying programs to these channels, and where once the BBC was just its own broadcaster sitting alone enjoying the monopoly it had on the broadcasting world, suddenly all these old buzzards at the BBC, the dusty old BBC, had a challenge on their hands. And the challenge was to keep the viewers' attention. This BBC very quickly started to look very old. So what did they do? They have to basically, there was generally the attitude that everyone at the BBC was quite arrogant. They thought they were the best in broadcasting, and the truth was they were. I mean, they were arrogant, and they were the best in broadcasting. When it came to quality and health and safety and just attention to detail and lack of mistakes and accuracy, all sorts of things like that. The BBC had an infrastructure in place to make sure that they did things right, and they had training programs like the one I had just done. I did a 2-year traineeship paid, which was picking the very best of the best out of applicants, and they were bringing us up to training us how to do multi-camera direction, scripting, copyright, research, proper research, music research, how to fill in documentation to declare music that you'd used. We were learning how to be journalists. We were learning how to be how something should be lit, and understanding what different types of lights, so that when we speak to DOPs, we can speak the same language as them and say, can we have, as a Kino Flow lamp over there? It'd be great if we could have that. What do you think? Oh no, I'm the DOP. I think we should have this lamp. And I'd go, yeah, no, I think you know better. That's a good idea. I like the idea of that lamp. And it was a really brilliant working relationship everybody had with each other, because we all had our own jobs. A researcher researched, director directed, producer produced, camera operator operated the camera. But now it's a very murky world of everybody doing everybody else's job and doing them half as good as they used to, perhaps. It's not always true, by the way. You get that, and I don't want to sound cocky or arrogant, but that is kind of how things started out. So the BBC had a challenge on its hands. There were TV shows like The Big Breakfast. There were TV shows, I don't know, there's all sorts, like The Tube, and that's a bit older than when I'm thinking. But there was just interesting things happening. Big Brother was happening. And it was just like really edgy, funky TV. The Big Breakfast absolutely killed BBC Morning. The BBC's morning, dull, boring, conservative breakfast show. Conservative, I don't know, liberal maybe. I don't really know. I wasn't really into politics then, so I wasn't aware of these political biases, to be honest with you. But I'm not political now. Not political now, I might add to that. But that's how it was. And I noticed as I got moved around departments that I was being put with executive producers who had come from what we called outside. Yeah, from outside the BBC. Now, we were a bit snobby about people who came from outside the BBC. They weren't formally trained. They were just like mates of somebody who had a TV channel or who had a production company. And I worked on shows. I worked on a show called All Rise for Julian Clary. And on that show, now there's no smoking policy at the BBC indoors. You can smoke outside, but you couldn't smoke in your office, understandably. But when I'd worked on that show, the boss used to smoke in her office. And so, she obviously felt that, well, if she's smoking, we were allowed to smoke. So some of the other researchers started smoking, and I was a smoker, so I would smoke. And we were literally smoking all the time at our computers on the 6th floor of Television Centre. And that was the only office in the entire BBC where smoking was happening. And I remember that they were too frightened to say anything to her. Because she'd be like, see you then. I'm off to go. Because, there's much more money outside. Back then, there was much more money to be made for commercial stations that had commercials. I imagine. But I don't even know. But nothing was done about it. But I did think that, this is new. We have people coming from the outside, non-BBC trained staff, non-freelancers, essentially. And we didn't really have them before. Coming in to lead teams. And then that was my observation about that. And the BBC started letting go a little bit about what people were allowed to do. And I think that people came in who weren't interested in looking at this book. They didn't care about the book. They don't care about the fact that there's a massive thick book. They're not going to read that. We don't, I should have. I've been paid an absolute fortune. I've come on board to make your show really good. You're bringing me in because of all the funky stuff I've done on Channel 4 and Channel 5. And I'm a bit edgy. So don't crowd me with your books and your rules, please. And I think that's what happened. This is my opinion. I'm not saying it's what happened. It's what I think happened. And then I noticed something was happening over on Newsnight, which is the same. You remember I showed you this? That. So this gentleman here, Lewis Goodall, who I don't know anything about him, to be honest, but he's been accused of being quite biased. And I think that is biased. That, to write an article saying the government's inept is not something that a non-biased. That is something a biased person would do, or it sounds it. It loses trust anyway. Keep it together, Craig. Where are we? Right. So people were coming on board who weren't interested in paying attention to the rules. And one of the things that Newsnight did when Jeremy Paxman was there, they brought in somebody. I think he'd come from The Guardian. His name was Ian Katz, and these are all brilliant people. By the way, these are all brilliant people, and they all were making fantastic contributions to various things. Like I think Ian Katz was The Guardian, but he'd done stuff with Channel 4. He came in to be the boss of Newsnight. Now, I don't know what went on about how he decided to change Newsnight. And by the way, Guardian being quite a left-wing liberal newspaper. So when he came into Newsnight, I don't think he would have been all that interested in sitting down and learning this. He'd have pushed the boat out a little bit and taken a few risks, no doubt. And then you bring in freelance journalists. So everyone, slowly but surely, there's the whole culture emerging of people who aren't paying attention, even though they're being told to the guidelines, which by this stage had moved online. So these books, they stopped printing these books and they just started putting everything online, and it's still online there. Search for producer guidelines, BBC producer guidelines, and you'll find the latest version. It's not changed really. And then Paxman left. Because now I don't know why he left. I could research it. I'm gonna, but I think you can imagine it seems a bit odd, isn't it? Like things were right, things were good, Paxman liked the way the show was, and then somebody comes in from outside the BBC and wants to make a few changes. Of course, you'd want to put your own sort of fingerprints all over it, wouldn't you? And then things change and people leave, and that's what happens all the time. The old blood goes out and the new blood comes in, and then it takes. Now this was 20 years ago, so that's a generation, isn't it? Probably 2 in terms of jobs. And I think that's what happened. I really do. I think that's what's happened. And there's, through lack of sort of leadership at the very, very top, perhaps, although they are, I know Tony Hall. I used to work at the Royal Opera House as a freelancer. I did shows for the Royal Opera House as a freelancer for broadcasting stuff. And he was a really nice guy, Tony Hall, whenever I met him. And obviously great leader. But again, there's somebody from outside the BBC, although he had his roots initially at BBC. But there was just generally this pressure on, I think, to keep everything a little bit, use freelancers. Obviously, during all this time, amazing things were happening to BBC. They got rid of Television Centre, they sold it, and then I think they've got it back as a kind of like a separate commercial enterprise now. You can hire studios there. I think BBC Studios, is it? Or is it like called BBC something else? And now the studios are back to massive popularity, but they're shared amongst all the different channels. You can just go in, hire one of the studios if you want. And I know that the ITV do it a lot, and Channel 4 do it as well, and BBC use the studios as well. So that's what TV Television Centre has become. Some of the other buildings, I don't know, they made Broadcasting House bigger. They moved a bunch of staff up to Manchester, bought their houses, gave them money for their houses. That's something I'm going to have to research. But I did have a friend who was a floor manager, and he was saying that they were offering him good money for his house, to sell his house, if he would agree to move up to Manchester, something like that. Or he could take redundancy. So it was all costing a fortune. And they wanted to be more regional, but all they've actually happened to do is become either, now they're just London centric or Manchester centric. It's always city centric now is the big issue, I think, for the BBC. There's no regionalness to it. So that is where the BBC was at. And what has happened recently is that we have had let's have a look on the internet. We've had this, which is I'll go to page 1. Here, this is the annual report and accounts for 2019-20. This is available online. Just go to downloads.bbc.co.uk, do a search for annual report, BBC annual report, and you'll find this. And it's got absolutely everything in here. It's got the financial statements and everything, and it tells you how many people are watching their shows and what they're intending to do. And basically, they do try and paint a picture that everything's going really, really well. Look how happy he is. That's Sir David Clementi. He was the chairman. I don't think he is anymore. Here's the new guy who is showing, it's very promising what this is the new Director General. His name is Tim Davey. He's quite young, isn't he? I wonder if he's the same age as me. I bet he's younger. And he's doing some promising thing. He's been saying that a lot of the comedy on the BBC is a little bit too lefty. Which is probably true. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's really a left or right wing thing. I think that there's just, it seems to be, it's woke and not woke now. And woke is like really sort of dictatorial about behavior and thinking and changing history and changing everything. And doing this sort of cancel culture if you don't comply to it, instead of where my thinking is, well, instead of like tearing statues down, why don't you just build new ones as well? Why don't you add to them? That seems to make sense to me, because I'm Scottish, and I'm sure historically the Scots have done terrible things to various people. I don't know, how far back do you want to go? But I'm proud of Scottish history, I think. Am I proud about it? I don't know if I am actually proud about it. But anyway, that's where things are at. So it all got a bit wokey, and this guy seems to be a little bit trying to reel back on that now. But something that one thing that I've thought needs to happen with the BBC is that they need to readdress their spending, because currently, I don't know if you know or not, if you're not in the UK, you might not realize. Let me tell you a little bit about the license fee. So the license, I don't have a license, even though I'm a producer, director, freelancer. I don't I don't have a TV license because I stopped watching telly. I just do. I do more of this kind of thing, watching this type of content on YouTube. And I pay attention to Twitter, and I follow all the different programs and channels and broadcasters on Twitter. And if something good happens on a show, they'll put a clip on Twitter, so I see it there, or they'll have it on like YouTube later. There's stopped being a need for me to have to go to an electronic device in the corner of my living room at a certain time of the day to watch a certain thing happening. I just didn't. That doesn't comply to what I want to do in my life anymore. I don't want to be in a certain place at a certain time because that's when a TV show is scheduled. I'd rather be out on my bike. I'd rather be out, I don't know, doing hiking, or doing this, or doing whatever I want to do. And I will choose when I watch whatever thing I want to watch. And it's not the end of the world if I miss out on some things. And I feel thoroughly entertained and very satisfied with the level of entertainment I'm receiving through all the different sources that I use, like Netflix and Amazon Prime, and that's it. So there was no need for me to, if the rule was that I have to pay £154 a year to watch scheduled television, then I'm cool. I'm good without it. I really am. And it was, there's always the threat, by the way. It's always like, something quite odd about it was that if you didn't pay it, you could have people come to your door to check, wanting to check, and there'd be a third party company, and they could potentially put you in, and you could end up in prison if they find out that you actually have TV arrows plugged into your TV set, and you probably are watching television, but you don't have a license. That could send you to prison. Like, can you imagine if Sky sent you to prison? Would Sky send you to prison if you were like not paying their bill? It just seems bizarre. They wouldn't. They'd cut you off. So it doesn't work. It wasn't right. It doesn't work, and it never will work. So it has to go. And I kind of think that I'm not somebody who's like defund the BBC. I'm somebody who's like, let's get it back. Let's fix it again. Let's make it world class again, because it's lost it, and it's lost it just through its belief system. Its values have become weakened as the different generations and the freelancers have passed through the production teams. That's how I feel. Plus, they got rid of a lot of their staff and just started using freelancers. So everybody became a job to everybody rather than a passion and a career. Yeah, I mean, I it's been a while since I've been in the culture of the BBC, so I can't really comment on how it is now. I did hear somebody in the radio this morning saying that she was in the BBC recently and felt that they probably do with getting rid of a lot of the staff. You know, she said a producer sending 2 emails would be regarded as a good day's work for some. I mean, I think that's a little far-fetched, but I'd imagine there's a lot of time wasted by people coming in, rolling in. That's what we used to do. We used to roll in around about 10ish with our bacon roll and our coffee, and then chat for half an hour. How you doing? All laid back. Hey, get the bean bags out. It was incredibly laid back. But that, as I say, might just have been me. Looking back at this, though, there is money being wasted, I think. And I understand why it is. Here's something being flagged. Newsnight, talking about Newsnight, the Prince Andrew interview was superb. And it's good that they're flagging it, because if you didn't see it, it's worth sort of trying to find. Let me try and let's try and move it so you can read this here. Emily Maitlis, here she is here, did an amazing job getting this guy to basically put massive question marks about his relationship with Epstein. So that's good. That's great. That's good journalism. But she is also the person who got reprimanded by Frances Unsworth. Here, Frances. This is her Twitter timeline. As she is the director of BBC News and Current Affairs. She got the job here. Look, she's saying, proud and delighted to be odd. It is odd to be taking the role of director of the BBC's World Service Group. This is October 2014. So she became the boss there then. She hasn't really tweeted since, which is curious, probably wise. But she has, she did criticise what Newsnight did. Newsnight basically did a story. BBC boss supports the reprimand of Emily Maitlis because she backed Dominic Cummings. So she basically, she wrote a piece that basically said that he had broken the rules. The BBC Head of News has defended reprimanding Emily Maitlis for her monologue over Dominic Cummings, pointing to a poll showing a third of people still supporting the Prime Minister's aid. Fran Unsworth defended BBC's ruling against the introduction on Newsnights, which claimed Cummings had broken the rules, and the country can see that and is shocked. It's shocked the government cannot. Speaking during an online Royal Television Society lunchtime event on Thursday, Unsworth referenced a study. 30% of the public did not believe Cummings had done anything wrong. She said, just because the majority of opinion is on side, and I absolutely accept that they were, and that I say was evidence of the programme, it was the language with which the intro was phrased, which I felt basically belonged more to an op-ed page in the newspaper than it did in the intro to an impartial broadcast programme. Unsworth also disagreed with Maitlis' assertio, I think that's assertion, that Cummings owed his survival to Johnson's blind loyalty. So I think this is just teams getting lazy, getting a little bit lazy and forgetting themselves. The other thing was, and I've actually been tweeting quite a lot to this chap called Richard Sambrook on Twitter, and he was given the role of kind of paying attention to how BBC staff are using social media. And I used to start flagging to him things that they were saying on social media. And they're all being a little bit better behaved now. Lewis Goodall, who did one of the pieces that were in that Cummings article, that Maitlis introed, he says here on Twitter, there's been an effort for a while by some to try and make scrutiny and partiality one and the same. Needless to say, they're not. Indeed, lack of proper scrutiny is the worst partiality a journalist can be guilty of. I mean, he's right, but but the thing is that what people do is they judge you by the sum of what you say. It's like, for example, if say somebody like Lawrence Fox only ever does interviews on talk radio, only ever has articles in the Telegraph or the Daily Mail. Why is he not in the Mirror? Why is he not in the Guardian? That's because they won't have him, right? So the sum of his output looks right wing because they're the people who are agreeing perhaps with what he's saying. Therefore, he must be right wing, right? So this and so you look at the sum of somebody like Lewis, who has I think he's got a history with the Labour Party anyway, but it's the sum of what he does and the tone and the inferences that he makes and what he retweets and what he doesn't retweet, and these all this information over time makes you think, oh, they're biased. But what's interesting is that there's a lot of people think the BBC are really conservative, and a lot of people think they're really left wing. So it's very hard to win. But something needs to happen because there's too many people being forced to pay the TV license who aren't happy. So what's happened recently is there's talk of the appointment of these two fellows here. This is Charles Moore. I think he's down for chairman. And Paul Dacre. Let's have a look. Former Daily Telegraph and editors reported poised to lead the BBC and Ofcom respectfully. I'm not quite sure what the appointment is. Will it tell me if I click it? Number 10 told Charles Moore's appointment could put BBC independence at risk. So these guys, Paul Dacre, editor of the Daily Mail, commonly regarded as a terrible newspaper. Do I have quotes of what they've done? Oh, it's a paywall. Don't do this to me. Come on now. Register for free reading. Register for free and continue reading. God, it's licenses everywhere, isn't it? Oh, so I can't bring that to you, unfortunately, because I'm not going to start signing up for newspapers. So these are basically kind of righty. Again, don't like the term, don't like the winging of things, but these are people who are certainly not. It's my belief that the BBC are predominantly liberal. Really nice guys, yeah, really nice guys. I think they're kind of woke, and we see it all the time with various attitudes and all the pressures on them in terms of diversity. And these guys are probably these are the anti-heroes. These are not anti-heroes, but these are going to be seen as the devils incarnate, basically becoming their bosses. If I look at this annual report, right, this is something I thought was quite odd, was looking at the spending. See if I can get it up. Where's the spending? Is that it? Yeah, here we go. So I was looking at all this. So here's performance data packs. Radio performance by service. This is just radio, right? And we've got like 4 columns. One column is cost for content. One is percent of reach. One is time spent listening to service each week, hours and minutes. This is by one person, I presume. And the cost per user hour. So that's the cost to the BBC for every hour that they broadcast. So let's look at something like Radio 1 at the top. The content costs £38 million. That's what was spent. The budget was the budget was 40. They spent 38. Oh no, that was the previous year. That's the previous year was 40, and this year they spent 38. So they spent £38 million on Radio 1. The cost per hour was 1p. And then let's look down here at this is the Asian network. The cost was 8 million, but the cost per hour was 6p. So it costs 6p, 6 times as much as Radio 1 for every hour. I mean, that's weird, isn't it? They must be losing money on that. Radio 1 has a 16% reach of the population, with the Asian network has a 1.1% reach. Sorry, so Radio 1's got 16%, 16.6. Radio 4, 88 million pounds spent on Radio 4 for content. What? And the reach was 19.3%. And the time spent, people are only listening for about, what's that, hours? 10 hours. Well, that's high. And look, Asian network, people are only listening for 4 hours. So if this was a business, they'd get rid of Asian network, wouldn't they? They'd think, oh, that's not making us any money. It's not cost effective. We need to get rid of it. But the BBC's a public service broadcaster, so they have to cater to all the different communities out there and all the different societies that exist within the bigger society. People are huddling into the groups. I knew when I lived in London, I only hung out with Scottish people. We all lived in our little Scottish group. No, but seriously, people do that. People are huddling up, and it's very hard, I think, for the BBC to represent all the different communities that exist out there. But they're not doing it, are they? Where's the travellers? Where's the radio station just for travellers, for Romany travellers? Where's the radio station for I don't know, what the Asian network? What does that include? Asia's quite big, isn't it? It's a bit generic, a bit general. a bit sweeping, a bit one brushy. And I don't know. Stuff like this has to be addressed. And my solution is, I have a solution. I've been going for 40 minutes. That's perfectly way too long to be talking about stuff like this. But I do have a solution. I'd like to know what your solution would be. What needs to happen at the BBC? By all means, I'll put links to all this stuff down in the comments below, down in the description below. And you tell me what you think. Some of these numbers are fascinating. And you realize that, in terms of people, how many people hold a license fee has gone down substantially. In the hundreds of thousands, people are dropping off with their license fee. Things definitely need to change. And just before I go, this is what my thinking is. I think that we need to get rid of some of the regional radio stations, certainly in the UK. Because, I live in Yorkshire, and we have Radio Sheffield, Radio Leeds, Radio Humberside. There's probably a Radio York. These are all BBC radio stations. And really, we just need, a West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, East Yorkshire station, I would have thought. So, cut the number in half. Or maybe just have Yorkshire. I don't know. There's BBC Radio Scotland, but there's probably, Fife, and there's probably... Hebrides, and there's probably all, everyone has to be catered for. And I think we have to ditch that belief that we have to try and keep everybody happy, because it's impossible. What we need to do is start encouraging everybody to to stop being separate. Yorkshire shouldn't be separate to Cumbria or whatever. We should all be... The BBC could be bringing the country a bit more together. Instead, it's identifying differences and satisfying them and encouraging them to stay different. I don't think it's right that people in Scotland, for example, get a completely different perspective of what's going on in the news to what people living in England get. And people in England have no idea. People in England think people in Scotland are seeing the same TV shows as them, and they're not. People in Scotland are seeing stuff about Scotland. They're forgetting all about England, and people in England couldn't care less about Scotland. It's kind of a holiday resort, isn't it? It's a place you go when you got a long weekend available. Oh, pop off to Scotland, and the divisions are just getting huger and greater. And I think that we need to make things a bit smaller, and get rid of all these little border broadcasting stations that the BBC has, also across the world. Although I do know that the offices across the world are very small, and it's probably only one person to two people per office. I analyze what's the actual cost, because we don't, why should the BBC be? Why should the license fee be going towards a radio station out in Kenya? I think it's very important that people in Kenya have a good education system and they are informed. But, that's not something that should be coming out of a license fee that people are providing on the threat of going to jail. It's not right. Things need to change. I also think that there needs to be a cap on what celebrities are paid. Not celebrities, presenters are paid. Because the people who make TV shows and the people who front the TV shows, there's a divide there now as well, and there didn't used to be. If I was a producer of a show, the presenter would be taking my guidance on what to do, and now it's the other way around. Producers are afraid of presenters because they're so big. So let that be something. Let that be the sole preserve of the big entertainment shows over on ITV. Don't try and compete with them. Let them go and pay millions and millions and millions to their presenters, so their presenters just have total power, or rather their presenter's agent has total power. And I'll make another video about that another time. But there's a monopoly on that. But with the BBC, presenters should be capped at, I don't know, something like 150 grand. That's the most you can get paid as a BBC presenter. I think you should be a BBC presenter, and that means you don't go working on other shows. You can't go freelancing. That's confusing branding, I think. I also think that, and I think this is happening now, that if you work at the BBC, you should not be on social media saying what you think of Trump. You shouldn't be doing that. and you shouldn't be retweeting things, and then you shouldn't be putting in your bios that, oh, these opinions are my own and not held by the organizations I work for. Then take the name of the organization you work for out of your biog. That should change. They should just stop that. And the most important thing that should happen is the BBC should start doing a world-class traineeship program again, and start having people working there who have a solid grounding in broadcasting and doing the job, and also clearly define the jobs that they do. If you're a researcher, train to be a researcher. When I was there, we had researchers who were like in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, because they were professional researchers. It wasn't something that you do after you've been a runner because it's dead easy. It wasn't. It was hard work. It was hard work to research stuff because being factual and correct was important. So I would say do that. And traineeships are just really, really important. And I think that they should be training it should be elite. It should be, if you've got the stamp of the BBC on your CV as you trained there, then that should be to die for. That's the gold standard. And it isn't. It's laughed at now. It is a joke for people now. Nobody can, the BBC is loathed. They're seen as they were seen as a dusty, embarrassing, arrogant organization with non-funky people. And they don't have to be that anymore. They can be the center of excellence. So I think they should work towards being that again. Now, caveat to all this, my qualifications for saying any of this is that I was trained there and I worked there for a bit. Plus, I've for the last 20 years been a producer and director working with loads of different broadcasters. I make documentaries and everything and anything. I'm technical. I'm a self-shooting PD, so self-shooting producer director. So I operate cameras. I interview people. I write scripts. I do all these things. And I've sort of been sitting back, just sort of watching it all happen. And I don't want this to sound like a criticism, and this is the most important thing, of the BBC. I don't want to sound like a criticism of the BBC, although it is. But it's coming from a place of, I want the BBC to get back to what it was. I want it fixed, and I think it might be going in the right direction. But I think some brutal decisions are going to have to be made. I think it needs to downsize enormously and almost start again, but start again with knowledge of its history and where it's gone wrong, and not letting that happen again, and have a consistency of staff. Don't keep getting people in for a week and then getting them out and then getting a new person in. Nobody's going to be paying any attention to your values if you do that, because nobody cares, because they've just come from another broadcaster who doesn't care so much about it. I'm not talking about copyright. I'm not talking about what's the other thing? What they call it? The rules about what you can and can't broadcast. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about editorial stuff. Mainly political tone that you give things. And when I was trained, I was so proud of who I worked for and what I was doing, and that I was serving the public in a way. I used to call people sir and madam in the street. If I was filming and somebody wanted to get past, I'd say, "Oh, sorry, sir." I'd call them sir, because we'd have BBC branding everywhere. So, and it was totally natural to do that. I'm sounding like an old buzzard and like, oh, the old days of the BBC. And they weren't. I went through the transformation into digital, and I bet I know more about digital cameras and digital broadcasting than a lot of students coming out of university now. I bet I could tech the pants off them. No, that sounds like take the pants. Tech. I could tech them to death. I could out-tech them. That's what I'm saying, because I'm a nerd and I'm a geek, and I have the very latest camera right here, and you're not going to get the more modern camera than that. So I know my stuff. Okay. Anyway, what do you think? Why is everyone talking about the BBC? What do you think about the BBC? What do you think should happen to the BBC? That's the most important thing, because I want to know what should happen. And it's going to be very interesting at this crucial moment in time when they are appointing people from the Daily Mail, and they're not doing that yet. But things are changing. It's going to be very interesting to watch, and I hope that it does survive, and I hope that it gets better. And I know that there's this new channel called GB News with Andrew Neil, and that's going to be really interesting watching that too. So, what do you think? Let me know down below, and that's going to be my my line. Let me know down below. Let me know down below, and yeah. So it's no longer the morning, so I'm off. That has been 50 minutes of pure talking joy, and I've enjoyed every minute of having you listen to me. I'm off to have another coffee now, if that's all right with you. But thanks for watching. Subscribe and do all that stuff. Help me out, and you take care and be kind to one another. And see you later. Bye bye.